everyone know who you are and why we love you so much?
Well, I think that second question you're going to have to answer. My name is Bethany Hallam. I am the Allegheny County Council member at large. I also serve on the Allegheny County Jail Oversight Board and the Allegheny County Board of Elections. So many hats that I wear.
Yes, yes. So I'm glad that you filled them all out, because we are going to go into our questions. Please, everyone, if you can, please put on your silence your mic. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. Sonia, at the end, Sonia will be able to ask our Allegheny County Council at large any questions that you have. So now we're ready to start. Bethany, let's get into right now all of the polling places.
Wow,
I have, Sonia?
Yes.
Did you say something?
Mm-mm.
It
Oh,
sounds
I'm
like feedback from my voice, actually.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, so we have been going out, making sure everyone has a plan for November the 3rd. And unfortunately, we've been hearing that, some people were, we asked, do you know where your polling location is? And some people was literally saying the location from when their primaries were, so yes. So can you explain to us, have the locations went back to where they were originally, or where we were for our primaries?
Sure. So in the primary, so normally in Allegheny County, there are 1,323 voting precincts throughout the county, around 900 unique polling places for those 1,323 precincts. So in the primary, Allegheny County consolidated polling locations, and each municipality, aside from the city of Pittsburgh, only had one polling place. So everyone in one municipality went to one polling place in the primary. That was the only time that is going to happen. It was a disaster. We've done a lot of work to recruit poll workers to make sure that never has to happen again. So for the November 3rd general election, folks will be voting at their regular polling place. So not where you voted in the primary, but where you voted every election prior. And to make sure that there's no confusion, Allegheny County is actually going to be sending a postcard to every registered voter, letting them know that they're returning to their original polling place for November 3rd and where that polling place is.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And yeah, so let me go back to what I was saying about, the uniqueness and why we're doing this with McKees Rocks, because, it's extremely important that local offices know exactly what local offices are, the who, the what, the where, and the when. So Terrace and I, McKees Rock CDC, contacted us. We sat down and really thought about how important all of this is, and we have to stay consistent getting it out to our communities. So this is just the beginning. McKees Rock, we will be calling you back again, because as you know, things change, and we want to make sure that the community is always on top of what's going on and down in McKees Rocks and Stowe. So now you had talked about the 1,326 polling locations. Can we talk about the satellite places, and what does that mean? When you say satellite places, drop boxes, what does that mean?
Yeah, that is overwhelmingly what everyone's question is. It's this brand new term that no one's ever heard before. And so I think it's my job to explain to people all of these new changes. So last year, the Pennsylvania state legislature passed what's called Act 77. They passed this legislation that completely overhauled the way we vote in Pennsylvania. One of the things that was included in that legislation is allowing for satellite voting locations and drop boxes. So the reason I lump those two things together is because anywhere that there's a satellite voting location, there's also going to be a drop box. And that's the only places in Allegheny County that we're going to have drop boxes. So basically, when we talk about the satellite voting locations, we break it into two separate components. They are separate, and it's important to remember that. So the first piece of satellite voting locations are the drop boxes. A drop box is for a completed mail-in ballot. So you requested a mail-in ballot, you don't want to return it via the mail. So you decide to go to one of these satellite voting locations and drop off your completed ballot. Now remember, when you drop off that ballot, make sure you include the ballot, the inner secrecy envelope, and the outer signed declaration envelope. Really, really important that you remember all three components to return your mail-in ballot. Also important to remember, you can only drop off your own mail-in ballot. You can't drop off your partners, your children, your elderly neighbor down the street. You can only drop off your own ballot. When you go to turn in that ballot, the poll worker will make sure that they ask you, is this your own ballot? And you'll say yes, and you'll drop it in the box. So that's the first piece of the satellite locations and the most simple piece. The second piece of the satellite voting locations is where a lot of confusion is surrounding. So I have a really awesome, simple way to explain it because that's how I understand things. And, you know, I kind of get turned off whenever you hear elected officials explaining things at a level that people don't understand. We have to talk in regular language. We're regular people,
Right.
and that's what we should be having dialogue, right? So the second piece is only for people who have not yet requested a mail-in ballot. If you've requested a mail-in ballot, but you haven't received it yet, you cannot go to a satellite voting location and try to vote in person. So basically what happens there is it's all of the steps of the mail-in voting process, all in person at once. So you go to the satellite voting location, you apply for your mail-in ballot, get approved for your mail-in ballot, fill out your mail-in ballot, and then submit your mail-in ballot into a drop box. So really what it is a one-stop shop for in-person mail-in voting. So I think that's the most simple way to explain it. It's only for people who haven't requested their mail-in ballot. If you have already requested your mail-in ballot, the only thing you can do at a satellite voting location is return your completed mail-in ballot.
Okay. Now that cleared up a lot for me, and I really, really hope, because I had some questions about that, and I really hope that cleared up some for our watchers and our community members as well.
Yeah, what's the closest one to you guys, Terry? I was trying to think before I hopped on the call what the closest one was. If it was downtown, or if it was Carnegie, or if it actually, I think it's this CCAC on the north side, now that I think more about it.
So McKees Rocks will go to CCAC on the north side.
Well, the cool thing about it is any voter can go to any satellite voting location.
Oh, okay.
If they wanted to go out to North Park Ice Skating Rink, if they wanted to go out to South Park Ice Skating Rink, if they wanted to go to CCAC in the north side, or CCAC in Homewood, or the Department of Public Works Garage in Carnegie, or the Boyce Park Ski Lodge, there are so many places that you can go, and there's a schedule for when you can go to each place. All 8 satellite voting locations, in addition to the County Board of Elections, have a certain schedule. Okay, so there's 3 weekends starting October 10th and 11th. It's Saturday and Sunday, the 10th and 11th, the 17th and 18th, and the 24th and 25th of October. If you go on a Saturday, the hours are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you go on a Sunday, the hours are 11 a.m. until 7 p.m. So it's important that you check the schedule ahead of time so that you don't head out to a satellite voting location on a day when it's not open. Because a question I've been getting a lot is, will the drop boxes be open even when the satellite voting location is closed? And the answer is no. The drop boxes and in-person voting will only be on the designated times and day. The one that I forgot to mention, also the 2 that I forgot to mention, CCAC South and the Shop and Save in the Hill District. So definitely looking through this list, the CCAC Allegheny, that's CCAC on the north side. That's definitely the one that's going to be closer for folks in McKees Rocks and Stowe. And the dates for that is Saturday, October 24th and Sunday, October 25th.
Bethany, quick question. So a lot of our residents get around using public transit, so downtown might be more accessible for them. Where is the downtown location?
It's actually in the county office building. That's where the elections division is. So you're going to the elections division office is what you're doing. It's at 542 Forbes Avenue. and you take the elevator on up to the 6th floor, and you cannot miss it. As soon as you get off the elevator, the door is right in front of you. If you are taking public transportation, I would guess that that's the easiest one to get to. I agree. The cool thing about the county elections division office is you can actually turn in your completed mail-in ballot and vote in person absentee Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, and every one of those 3 weekends that I told you about. So that is the one location that is open every weekend, every weekday. So there's really a great opportunity to have so many chances to go and cast your in-person absentee or to drop off your completed mail-in ballot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. So can you explain real quick, because I know a lot of my family and friends in McKees, Rocks and Stowe, you know, when you had ran for Allegheny County at large, it was the very first time a lot of people have even heard of the Allegheny County at large, seat.
Me too.
So, so can you explain to us what is the role of the Allegheny County at large? What should McKees, Rocks and Stowe expect from you as that in that position?
Yeah, so prior to the year 2000, Allegheny County was governed by 3 county commissioners. They all represented the entire county. They were the executive body and the legislative body all rolled into one. If you look at most other counties throughout the Commonwealth, they operate on a county commissioner governing body. So in 1999, the voters of Allegheny County actually voted on a ballot referendum. So that is a ballot referendum is when you're not just voting for candidates on the ballot when you go to vote on election day, you're actually voting on issues and legislation as well. So there was a ballot referendum where the voters were asked if they wanted Allegheny County to become a home rule charter county. So part of the home rule charter, which is the way that your county, there's municipalities that are home rule charter, there are cities that are home rule charter. The way that the Allegheny County home rule charter works is we have an executive body, which is the county executive who represents the entire county. And then we have a 15-member county council, which is the legislative body of Allegheny County. So the way I explain it to people is the county executive is the president of Allegheny County. County council is the Congress, right?
Okay.
So we vote on the laws, we pass the laws, and the county executive signs off on them and implements them. So on county council, out of the 15 members, we have 13 county council districts. So we have 1 representative from each district, and we have 2 at-large seats that have to be from 2 different political parties. And those at-large seats, the 2 folks represent the entire county as opposed to 1 district.
Okay. You know, I love the way that you make it simple for us. I really do. I love the way that because you break it down and now this is how it is, okay. So I really, I thank you for that. And what I want to ask, a lot of times when we look at our elected officials, so you mainly work on policy and legislation, not budgets. Like someone could not come to you and say, hey, since you're my Allegheny County at large, can you give us some funding on X, Y, and Z?
No, actually, the number 1 power of county council is that we propose the budget. We vote on the budget. That is the single greatest power that we have, because remember, who controls the purse strings controls the world. And so that is our single biggest power, is voting on the budget. And it's almost a $2 billion budget in Allegheny County. And so that is definitely, I would argue, the most important part of our job, because what is a budget, right? It is of priorities. Whatever you give the most money to, you're saying is your greatest priority, and whatever you give the least money or no money to, you're saying is not at all a priority. So the budget process is very important. The city actually is in the middle of their budget process right now. The county council and the county budget process is coming up at the end of October.
Okay. Thank you for that. And so now, okay, I asked you about the budget. I want to ask you one or two questions about the Allegheny County Jail, because a lot of us have, some loved ones. I know this is I know. So a lot of us have loved ones in there who have been in there and now they're home, or, have had experience with the Allegheny County Jail. Knowing that there's a lot of things that you have right now going on to to enhance the families and make sure that there's a better ran Allegheny County Jail for all of Allegheny County. Can you tell us within maybe the next 3 years, 3 to 5 years, that what we can expect on a positive note coming from the Allegheny County Jail on your agenda? If you had your way,
It's up to me. Wow.
if it was up to you.
So one of my favorite parts about my job is that I serve on the jail oversight board as well as on county council. The wildest thing about that is that 4 years ago, I was sitting in the Allegheny County Jail. I was incarcerated there as a result of my battles with substance use disorder and some run-ins with the law. And so, as you know, Terry, because we talk about this all the time, that is a big focal point of mine, is fixing the jail. For anyone who hasn't been in there, you go into any pod on the jail and what you see is people who need help, right? They're not criminals. They aren't bad people. What they are is folks who are in there for committing crimes of survival, right? 81% of the people sitting in our Allegheny County Jail have never even been convicted of a crime. Yeah. So when you think about legislating and trying to make the jail a better place, we're trying to make a better place for folks who don't even belong in there in the first place. We're trying to make it a better place for people who are in there awaiting trial, folks who are in there for a technical probation violation, like failing to meet their PO when they were scheduled to meet them.
Yeah.
Something simple as that can land you in the Allegheny County Jail, where the conditions are absolutely horrendous. I honestly would not wish incarceration at the Allegheny County Jail on my worst enemies. But we have been making some great progress. I've tried to legislate a few things at the county council level regarding the jail. Unfortunately, I don't have enough allies there right now who are willing to legislate and to care about the people in the jail. But we tried to implement universal testing for COVID. That was a big thing that we tried for months to get council to just realize that it was a cesspool just waiting for an outbreak of COVID, right? You're in these conditions where you do not have proper cleaning products, where you cannot social distance, where you're given a flimsy mask that you have to wash yourself in your sink each day to keep it clean. It's just literally a breeding ground for COVID. And so we tried over and over again to multiple different routes to get universal COVID testing, even for the staff members as well, because as unhappy as the people who are incarcerated in the jail are, and as disgusting as their conditions are, the conditions for the folks who work there, the corrections officers, the mental health and medical professionals, even the kitchen staffers, the conditions for them are horrible as well. So when we talk about the jail, we're fighting for everyone in the jail, because remember, if someone who works in the jail, it contracts COVID inside the jail, it's not staying in there. It's coming out into our communities. You could be in the Giant Eagle line behind a corrections officer. You could be at the gas station behind a corrections officer, and they could have contracted COVID in the jail and you would never know. And so that's really why we had a big push on that. One of my biggest successes in improving the jail, and this is something I'm really, really proud of. So a goal of mine when I first got on the jail oversight board was free jail phone calls. So I was incarcerated for about 5 months back in 2016, and my parents spent thousands of dollars just to talk to me on the phone. And that, to me, the burden is on the loved ones of the person who's in jail, people who are out at home trying to feed their family, trying to pay their bills, trying to make ends meet, and they have this enormous burden just to communicate with their loved ones. Even to write letters, it costs money just to buy an envelope and paper and pens. and get that out in the mail. And so this burden is on the families and the people who are incarcerated as well. So one of the things I'm most proud of is that as soon as COVID started, I introduced a motion at the Jail Oversight Board to put $50 on the commissary accounts of every single person in the jail. And I introduce it again every single month. And the first month it was rough. I think it passed by 1 vote, and it's been a unanimous vote every single month since, because we've got such great feedback from people in the jail, from loved ones outside of the jail, just saying how much that helps. I mean, $50, which it comes out of the inmate welfare fund, which the inmate welfare fund is a problem in itself. It is funded by the profits off of commissary. And so the county makes so much money. You buy a bag of Doritos on the street for 25 cents. It's $2.50 to buy that same bag of Doritos in the jail. And so there's this huge, I call it a racket. I think it's a racket, because also the company that provides the meals, the 3 meals a day to the folks who are incarcerated, is the same company who provides the commissary. So they are incentivized to provide lesser quality of food throughout the day, so that folks are forced to get the nutritional value out of commissary, because it's just not enough of what they're provided during the day. So that is what that fund is comprised of. And so if you're going to profit off of people from the jail, we're going to take that money and we're going to give it right back to them and their families. And so it's a $3 million fund, and about $85,000 is what it costs us each month, which sounds like a wild, enormous number to me, because I've never had that amount of money in my life. But when you're talking about a $3 million inmate welfare fund that constantly replenishes, because the county is making such a profit off of commissary items, the county makes a 69% profit off of phone calls as well. So the least we can do is give folks that money. If they have folks at home they want to call, they can use it for phone calls. If they want to supplement the meals that they're being provided at the jail, they can buy snacks. They can buy hygiene products, soap, toothpaste, combs, warm clothing. Winter's coming around the corner, so thermals and additional underwear, socks, things like that you and I take for granted. Is such a commodity on the inside, and so many folks just have to go without because their family can't afford to provide it. So we've been giving them $50 a month since the beginning of COVID, especially since visits have been cut off due to so it gives them a way to communicate. So that's definitely my biggest accomplishment. My biggest goal, I would say there's 2 of them. If I could have whatever I want, the people in jail are actually getting tablets starting this week or next week, beginning of October is what they say. But they're very expensive to use. They do have video visit capabilities. You're able to read books and watch movies and listen to music and, use it for educational purposes, but it's all at a cost.
Yeah.
So if I could have whatever I want, we would have free unlimited use of tablets. We would have free jail phone calls. And something that I'm working on now, you all can be the first to hear about, is an incarcerated person bill of rights. So the same way that we have a Bill of Rights built into our Constitution, people in jail have automatic guarantees that are already legislated, such as the right to universal health care. Unfortunately, the Allegheny County Jail isn't providing mental health treatment, which is healthcare. Mental health care is healthcare. And so certain things like that, the right to proper food with proper nutritional value, the right to communicate with their loved ones as they see fit, just more rights, even when it comes to bedding, clothing, hygiene products. When I was in jail, toilet paper was withheld as a form of punishment. Menstrual products were withheld as a form of punishment. If your pod was loud or your pod was rowdy, nobody gets toilet paper or menstrual products for that. That's disgusting. And that is inhumane. And so certain things like that will be guaranteed rights for folks under this incarcerated Bill of Rights. So that's my big goals that I'm working towards. And so I can't wait to come back and update you whenever they get implemented.
Because they will be implemented. Because I'm so glad that you shared, some personal information about yourself. And I also want to, I want to make sure that, because I started to get overwhelmed, with emotions, because I know how, when we leave people behind and you do not forget them, I know that feeling So I know that everyone that is there or have, came home since you've been there, their families, their friends, that I'm telling you for them, I know that they are grateful for you, that you are out fighting the good fight,
That's awesome. And they, some of them have used that commissary money. I actually have a big stack of envelopes sitting on my nightstand right here to write me and tell me how appreciative they are of it.
Yeah. And honestly, I thought that it was only one time. I did not know it was every month.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
I have to reintroduce it every month. It wasn't like the first time I introduced it, it just kept on going. We have a jail oversight board meeting actually tomorrow, and I'm introducing it again for October. So
thank you for that, because that's what it means when, no man left behind. That's what that means. So thank you for that. I was getting a little emotional there.
Sorry.
So, so can I talk to you? Can you talk to us a little bit about, I have questions all over here. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, a lot of our community right now, Bethany, is, mail-in ballots is not safe because of what we're hearing, what we may be seeing. They're not safe. Some even say, I'd rather just not even vote because I don't want to go and get COVID, put myself in a position to get COVID. And I don't believe that mail-in ballots are safe. How safe are they? And can you explain how that works with the mail-in ballot?
Yeah, definitely. I want to start off by saying to everyone, every single vote counts. I've been involved in politics for a little bit, even before I ran for county council. I have seen races that were tied. I was with a guy last night who lost a borough council race by one single vote. And so we get into this mentality that, who's running for president, who's going to be sitting in the White House. And don't get me wrong, that's important. But the local races affect your life so much more than who is sitting in the White House. And overwhelmingly, those are the odd year races that folks don't vote in. So remember, you don't just vote once every 4 years for president. There is that election twice a year, every single year.
Yeah.
And the elections where we're not voting for president, in my opinion, are the most important ones that there are. That's when you're voting for your school board members to determine what your kids are learning in school, determine what dress codes are, determine what your school taxes are that you're paying. I know everyone is always up in arms about school taxes. That's your school board members who are making those decisions. When we talk about borough council races, board of supervisors, town council, again, those are the folks who are deciding what your municipal taxes are. Those are the folks who are making sure that your street is paved, making sure that you get a speed bump because cars are speeding and it's putting your kids in danger, making sure you get a stoplight or a stop sign at a dangerous intersection in your community. That's all your hyper local municipal level races, and those happen in the years that we're not voting for president. So that I want to start off by reminding everyone, anybody who tells you that your vote doesn't count is telling you that for a reason. And that's because they don't want your voice to be heard. So they're telling you to stay home. The only way to have your voice heard is to make sure you go out and vote. And there are definitely other forms of advocacy. I'm never going to sit here and act like voting is the cure-all to all of our problems that we have in our communities, because it absolutely is not. But we need to be out in the streets, and we need to have our issues heard, and we need to be active in our communities to make them a better place. But we have to couple those things with voting, because none of those other things will have any impact if we're not also voting the right people into office who will stand up for us, people with lived experiences, regular people who are going to fight for us every single day. So I just want to make sure I start off by reminding everyone, it is not too late to register to vote. You have until October 17th. Is it 17th?
I thought it was the 13th.
15 days prior to the election. So it is the 16th. Sorry. No, it is the 17th. Sorry. October 17th is the deadline to register.
So I'm calculating back. I was like, I thought it was okay.
Yeah, so October 17th is the deadline to register. Oh no, it's October 19th, guys. Please, sorry, excuse me. October 27th is the last day to request your mail-in ballot, but October 19th is the last day to register to vote. But hey, if you register to vote by October 17th, you'll be good to go. So I want to remind everybody of that. In regards to the mail-in voting, I mean, Terry, the concern that you mentioned that we've had so much upheaval with our United States Postal Service, not to mention Act 77 that I mentioned earlier was passed last year and implemented this year. This is the first year ever that anyone who wants to can vote by mail. In the past, you had to have a medical excuse,
Right.
you had to be out of town or overseas at the time of election day. But for the first time ever, we have no excuse mail-in voting in Pennsylvania. And the great thing about Act 77, the great thing about elections this year is that I shouldn't be the one to tell you the best way to vote, because for the first time, you have so many options.
Mhm.
You're the type of person who wants to make sure that you go to your poll on election day and vote in person because that's how you feel most comfortable. You have the option to do that. If you're the type of person who wants to vote by mail because you're worried about COVID and going to the polls and long lines on election day, but you don't really trust the Postal Service and the situation it's in right now, you can get a mail-in ballot and then take it to one of the drop boxes and drop it off ahead of election day. If you want to lay in your couch with no clothes on and vote from the comfort of your home, you can request your mail-in ballot. It will be delivered directly to your house. It has prepaid first-class postage. You don't even need to, if you're like me and have probably never bought a stamp in your life, you can have prepaid postage and just put it right back in the mailbox and it goes straight to your elections division. You can track it online and there's nothing to worry about. You have so many different options for how to vote, including the satellite voting locations that we mentioned earlier, where you can vote by mail without ever having to use the mail. As weird as that sounds, you know? So folks have so many options. I don't want to be the person to tell folks the best way to vote because everybody has a different situation. And everybody has different accessibility to the polls. A lot of folks' polling location they can't walk to. Some people, they can. Some polling locations have thousands of registered voters and you could wait in line for a period of time to cast your vote in person. Other polling places have a couple hundred registered voters and you can go and get in and out quickly. So whatever works for you, I just want everyone to know their options. And to speak about the security issue of mail-in voting, that's something that we've heard thrown around a lot. I've even heard the president of the United States telling people to vote by mail and then vote in person.
Yeah.
Let me tell you why that absolutely cannot happen. Not only is it a felony, and if you really want to see the inside of our Allegheny County jail, go ahead and do that and you'll find out real quick what it's like. It is a felony to vote multiple times.
Yeah.
It is a felony to commit any sort of election fraud or to falsify any sort of voting. But there are so many protections in place, minus the chance of criminal charges. There are so many protections in place to not only make sure that there is absolutely no fraud in the electoral process, but also to make sure that your vote counts when you intended to. So if you choose to vote by mail, every single voter is assigned a unique barcode with a unique voter ID. All of us on this call right now, every one of us has a very different, unique barcode and ID that no one would ever know. So no one can steal it. No one can take it from you.
Right.
As soon as you request a mail-in ballot, even if you never turn it in, you are marked as having voted in the voter rolls. So if you requested a mail-in ballot and then changed your mind, if you show up to your poll on election day, they're going to tell you that you already voted. And at that point, what you'll have to do is request a provisional ballot. Provisional ballots are not ideal. They're the last ballots counted on election day after election day is over. And, they've determined that you haven't voted via any other method. But remember, if you are going to vote in person, never, ever, ever leave your poll without casting a vote. If they try to turn you away or not let you vote for any reason, you have the right to request and demand, if necessary, a provisional ballot. So anybody who's watching, never ever leave your poll without voting. Always request a provisional ballot. You will be given one. So back to the mail-in voting. So like I said, once you request that ballot, you no longer are eligible to vote in person. You request your mail-in ballot and that barcode is scanned. You fill out the application. The Allegheny County Elections Division will process your application. And remember, you can track every step of this process via votespa.com. We call it the Vote Spa, so everybody remembers it. You can track every step from application until your vote is received. After your application is processed and you are approved for the mail-in ballot, you will be mailed your mail-in ballot. They scan the outer envelope that has your barcode on it so that they can track it, and they send it to your house. Even if there's some computer glitch, which we saw in the primary, where some folks received multiple ballots, even if you received 20 ballots, only the first one that you turn in is going to count. So don't let anyone tell you voter fraud this or voter fraud that because they received multiple ballots, because they can only turn in one. Even if they try to turn in multiple, because of that unique barcode, only the first one will count. And then you fill out your mail-in ballot. You remember to put it in the secrecy envelope and seal it. Put the secrecy envelope in the declaration envelope. Fill out the declaration and sign it, and put it back in the mailbox. Once that completed ballot is received by the Allegheny County Elections Division, they scan that unique barcode again to accept your vote as received. And there will be updated on your tracker status that says vote recorded. That then goes into a very, very secure warehouse with 30 different security cameras, 24/7, round the clock, in-person security. All of the mail-in ballots are locked behind a wire cage with all those cameras and security guards on them. And they cannot start being opened and counted until 7 a.m. on election day. So they'll sit there safe and secure, all guarded and everything. No potential for fraud. And then at 7 a.m. on election day, we'll have 200 workers at this warehouse. It's housed in the north side. At this warehouse, who will take all of those ballots, take the envelopes, feed them through an electronic opener. The machine will open the ballots, will open the envelopes, separate the ballots, and then the workers will then take the ballots and feed them through a scanner that counts your vote. So it is so much even more complicated than I'm explaining.
Yeah.
But there is literally no possible way to vote twice. There is no possible way for you to not be able to track your ballot from start to finish and make sure that your vote is counted. And as I mentioned earlier, I have seen ties. I have seen races where they were won or lost by 1 or 2 votes as well. Every single vote counts. And it's not only the president who's on the ballot on November 3rd. So whether you're happy or not with your choices for president, there are so many other races that are on the ballot. This year in Allegheny County, we have all of our U.S. congressional seats, all of our state representative seats, half of our state Senate seats, and all of the statewide row offices. And that, what that is the PA Attorney General, Auditor General, Treasurer, all of those offices are on your ballot as well. So regardless of how you feel about the presidential race, remember that there are so many other races that are so important as well.
I'm glad you brought that up, because we had a couple of guests. We're having Senator Fontana. We had Pam Iovino. I'm glad you brought that up as well. And because we had some great guests too. And I'm also glad that you brought up the importance of local offices, because that's exactly why Western Power, got involved. That's exactly why McKees Rock CDC contacted us. This is exactly why we're doing this, is because of the importance of local offices and our power in our vote.
And speaking of local offices, if you want to make sure that you have representation at the local level, today is the deadline. What?
Sorry.
Oh.
I thought I went on mute and called my.
I was like, you're as excited about the census as I am. Oh my gosh, Terry. I want to remind everyone that today is the final day to complete your 2020 census. You may have gotten some letters in the mail about it. You may have had some folks knocking on your door. You can complete the census by going to 2020census.gov or my2020census.gov. Both of those links will work. You may think the census is, why do I care? Why does this matter to me? So when we talk about people representing you locally, The way that that representation is decided is by counting how many people live in each district. The only way for you to be counted is to complete the census. Right now, we're at a little over 70% return rate, which is on par for census years. But that means that only 70% of the people in this county are going to be counted. The only way to get funding for your community, the only way to make sure you have elected officials who are fighting to make sure that your schools have funding, your roads are paved, your parks are fixed up and remodeled. The only way to make sure that there is money for all of those things is to make sure that you're counted and complete the census. Today is the very, very last day to do this. So if you have the opportunity, heck, do it while we're sitting here right now. You can pull it up online and do it. It takes about 5 to 7 minutes to complete it and make sure you are counted. We do not have another opportunity to be counted for 10 more years, an entire decade before we have the opportunity to be counted again. So head on over my2020census.gov or 2020census.gov and make sure you're counted and make sure your community gets the resources that they need.
Thank you so much. So yeah, sorry about that. Somebody was knocking on the door and I was calling for Q to come answer it, but I thought I went on mute. So sorry everybody.
So real quick, so Sonia's putting in our chat, and as Bethany said, for the people out watching on Facebook Live, it is my2020census.gov. So my2020census.gov. And as Bethany said, today's the deadline. We in McKees Rocks, I know at last count, we were at something like 47%. And unfortunately, it's because of lack of participation, lack of people using their voice, that we end up missing out on things. And as Terry said, that's exactly was the motivation behind us working with Terry to do just what we're talking about tonight. It's just so critical, right? And it's a constant effort for us to engage people. I want to say real quick while I'm off mute. So Bethany, this is awesome because while you were talking, I went on to pavotes.com because I thought I might have an issue, or excuse me, votespa.com, because I thought I might have an issue with my mail-in ballots. So
Can I ask that?
What's that?
Why did you think you might have an issue?
So when I got my application in the mail, okay, I put it in my stack of other important things that I was going to look at that day, and I'm filling bills out, and I'm putting, okay, these are the envelopes to go in the trash, and I mistakenly put that envelope with the other envelopes, and I ripped it up and threw it in the trash, and then I'm like, where's my application? So I went in and got the envelope out of the trash, filled out my application, scotch taped it together, and got it in the mail, right? So I was talking with Terry before you came on that I'm like, did they throw it out because it was scotch taped together and it looks, like something fishy happened? So while you were talking, I went on votespa.com, and as you said, you can track the status of your mail-in or absentee ballot. And I did, and boom, it came up that it had been received and it's pending.
Great.
So I guess it'll come out in the mail to me soon.
It will say that the status is pending until your completed ballot is received by Elections Division. So as soon as your completed ballot is received, that pending status, it won't change until it changes to vote recorded when your ballot's received.
Okay, so, but that pending status does mean that they're mailing me out a ballot.
Yes, it actually should have a mailed date, a date that your ballot was mailed. Okay. If it hasn't been mailed yet, it'll just be blank. So when you log on to the votes tracker, you see online general 2020 election. It'll say the date that your application was received, the date that it was approved, and then the next date that you'll see is when your ballot was mailed. Important to remember that the mailed date is only the date that the mailing label is printed. So if you see it was mailed 7 days ago and you still haven't received your ballot,
right,
do not worry, it's coming. And then the next date that it'll say is when your ballot was received by Elections Division completed. And that's when the pending and only then will update it to vote recorded.
Okay, cool. So I'm looking at it right now. I brought it up again. Okay, so the mailed on date is blank, so it hasn't been mailed yet.
Correct.
Okay, so that's really cool that I could go to
The Vote Spa, votespa.com.
yeah, votespa.com, and it has one of the Ryan, who's on our Zoom here, actually put in the chat a bunch of the dates, but all those dates and the processes are all on that website, which is really cool.
And please do not wait until the deadlines. As we said, the deadline to register is October 19th. The deadline to request a mail-in ballot is October 27th. But remember, mail-in ballots must be postmarked by November 3rd. So if you wait until October 27th to request it, by the time it gets you, it's very possible that you may not have time to mail it back before the deadline. Ballots are able to be received up until Friday, November 6th, but only if they're postmarked by Election Day. You cannot mail a ballot after Election Day. It'll be too late. So very important that even though those deadlines are there, get it done as soon as possible. As quickly as it takes you to do your 2020 census, which you're all going to do tonight, it's an even more quick process to apply for your mail-in ballot or register to vote.
Thanks for that. Good questions, Terrace. And I'm glad that you brought up, the percentage of how many census applications has been completed in McKees, Rocks, and Stowe, because it is extremely important. I mean, that's SNAP, that's the road, that's just, it's your community. Yes, it's your community that needs to be counted. And one thing I like to let everybody know is that the money is going to go somewhere. If it's not your community, it's going to go to another community. Why not yours to be counted? So a couple more questions I wanted to ask before we let you go. Two things. In Allegheny County, is this your level, state level, council level, or federal level that automatically at the age of 18 you are registered to vote?
Yeah, so that would be the state level. I mean, it could be done federally. We could do automatic voter registration for every single person as they turn 18 in the entire country, but also we're able to do it at the state level as well. So there are states that already have automatic voter registration. So elections are run by everything except for the federal election for president, right? And for the US Congress. Elections are run by the Department of State. So each state has a Department of State that runs elections. And then at the county, they're the ones who make the rules, who give the guidance on how to process applications and ballots and election day and all of that. Each county throughout each state is then in control of their own election. So you cannot do something that the state or federal level tell you that you can't. So I couldn't in Allegheny County say, let's have automatic voter registration in Allegheny County, but our state legislators could do it, and then we could help facilitate it at the county level.
Okay. Thank you for that. And my last question is, there's rumor going that, okay, let's just say that someone in McKees, Rocks, or Stowe have not voted for 5 years. Are they purged off the pool, off of their voter registration? Do they have to register again? Because there's rumor that, voters are being purged off of the registration. So if someone has not voted in McKees, Rocks, or Stowe for 2 to 5, 6, 10 years, what does that mean?
So in Allegheny County, we actually were sued over this not that long ago. And it was I forget who it was that sued us. It might have actually been the Trump campaign, because he sued us for something else now that I'm thinking about it. But earlier this year, Allegheny County was sued to clean up, is what they call it. That's their nice term, clean up your voter rolls. So really what that is it's mainly for people who have died. For people who have changed their names. There's a lot of folks who get married and change their name and don't change their voter registration because it's not at the top of their list of things to do. So that's really in Allegheny County who we have purged from the rolls is people who have died, and then even after they die, they have to not vote in 2 consecutive federal elections. So that would be 4 years, right? Federal elections
Okay.
are
Mhm.
number years. Local elections are odd number years. So there's an easy way for everyone to remember that. 2 consecutive federal elections in 4 years after they passed. So just to be sure that they are actually passed, just to be sure that the person is actually not the same person. It's the same as when people move. Sometimes they register to vote at their new address with a new name, but never changed it over from their old one. But again, the vote spa, which the link is already in the chat, you can do everything there, including checking your voter registration status. A great example, when I first started dating my boyfriend, one of my first questions, I met him on Tinder, right? So one of my first questions is, I hope you're registered to vote. He said he was. Well, I got his information and I went online and I checked because I wanted to make sure before we got serious. And his voter status was inactive. He was not registered, but he was listed as inactive. And that is what happens whenever you have not voted for a period of time. An inactive voter is still eligible to vote, but you can go and update your voter registration to make sure that you have the right address on file. Lots of folks have moved in the past 5 years since they last voted. So it's so important that even if you think you're registered, go online to the Vote Spa, votespa.com, and that's where you can register. That's where you can check your registration to make sure it has your correct address where you're living now. And that's where you can apply for and track your mail-in ballot as well. So it really is a one-stop shop. It is run by the Department of State. It has the most accurate and up-to-date information. So I would advocate for everyone to do that. I think where we've really heard a lot about like voter purging is in Georgia a couple years ago. Really big thing there. They were intentionally purging Black voters from predominantly Black communities from the voter rolls in order to influence the election.
Yeah.
So that is, just because it hasn't happened here yet does not mean that someone might not try it. So it is very important that if you have not voted in, 2, 3, 4 years, check your voter registration. It takes 2 seconds. Maybe you can update your name. Maybe you can change your party affiliation, and maybe you can update your address. Whatever it is that you need to do, you want to make sure that you keep that accurate. And remember, when you go to vote, you do not need to show ID. Only folks who are voting for the first time need to show a form of ID, and it doesn't need to be a driver's license or state photo ID. So don't worry if you don't have an ID, you can still go and vote.
Let me ask you this for McKees, Rocks, and Stowe. How can someone become a poll worker? And I hear that the pay have went up. So how can someone in Stowe or McKees, Rocks become a poll worker?
I am actually going to post the link in the chat where you can sign up to be a poll worker. So it is in the chat right now.
Okay.
Normally the pay is about $135. In the primary at the Board of Elections meeting, we introduced a raise because remember, we're in the midst of a global pandemic. All frontline essential workers should be paid a fair wage. $135 for 15, 16 hours of work just doesn't sit well with me at any time, but especially in the midst of a pandemic. So we raised the pay to $200 in the primary, and then we voted again to do that in the general election as well. I'm hoping after this election, we can have a discussion to get it at least 200 every election. 225, I would think would be a little more fair. But that's a conversation that is to be had after the chaos of the next month.
Okay. So, oh my goodness, it's been such a pleasure. Is there anything, I think I have asked everything that was on my list, and some, is there anything that I may have not have asked that you would like to let the community know, and can you share that with us now?
Sure. I think the number one thing that I want everyone listening to take away from this is that in Pennsylvania, a lot of people I have talked to knocking doors think that if you have a felony conviction on your record, you cannot vote. In Pennsylvania, once you have finished serving your sentence, your felony sentence, you can vote. Not every state is the same. You don't even have to pay all your fines and fees to be able to register to vote. You can even vote while you're incarcerated, as long as you are incarcerated for not a felony sentence. So if you're incarcerated on a misdemeanor drug charge, while you're in jail or prison, you can vote.
Yep.
That is in Pennsylvania. I'm sure a lot of people have been hearing about how in Florida, they are refusing to allow people with felony convictions to vote if they haven't yet paid their fines. That is not the case here in Pennsylvania. If you have a felony conviction and you are out in the streets and living your life, regardless of how many fines and fees and restitution you still owe, you can vote. So that is another misconception that is very purposely pushed on communities because they want to silence your voice. Do not let your voice be silenced. If you are incarcerated serving a misdemeanor conviction or awaiting trial, you can vote. If you are out on the street with a felony or any conviction, you can vote as well. So that is definitely what I want to make sure I say before I get off this. And then the second thing is, we've said it many times, but I don't think it hurts to say it again. If you are voting by mail, remember to use both envelopes. You'll see 2 envelopes and you'll think, why do I need 2 envelopes? It is very important. The Supreme Court just ruled a little over a week and a half ago that if your ballot is submitted without using both the inner secrecy envelope and signing the outer declaration envelope, your vote will not be counted and you will not even know until it's too late. So those are the 2 most important things I want to make sure everyone knows, and make sure before you go to bed tonight that you go to my2020census.gov and fill out the census and make sure you are counted.
Let me ask you, can you please let the community know if they, when we are done down an hour from now, tomorrow, they may think of a question. How can someone get in touch with you? How can someone get in touch with you to chat with you, or to even have conversation with you one-on-one, that they may come up with, a question that they may have for you down the line?
Yeah, that's a great question. I pride myself in my accessibility. I want to make sure that voters are able to have the one-on-one contact to answer any of their elections questions, that constituents are able to hear about, ask me about anything that's going on in their community, let me know about an issue that they want dealt with. Truthfully, if you just want to talk, I like to talk. You can get a hold of me in so many different ways. My name is Bethany Hallam, and you can find me on Twitter, Instagram. I have 3 Facebook pages. You can, if it's an official county issue, you can email me at bethany.hallam@alleghenycounty.us. If it's not an official county issue and you want to talk about campaigns or volunteering or just want to have a chat, BethanyHallamPGH@gmail.com. So again, I am all over social media. I have about 15 email ads. No, I have 3 email ads, and I am here for you. I just want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable, with everything that's going on in our community. This is really a point in our lives where the world seems like the worst it could ever be. But I promise, as we work together, as we get involved in our community, as we support each other, things are going to get better, but it only happens if we all come together and we all work.
So I think we have time for like 1 or 2 questions. Sonia, is there any questions in the chat?
Yes, there's one from Ryan. He said he'd like to have your advice, Bethany, to go about helping to convince, persuade emphatically someone to register and actually vote. He says he did not check his partner's voter status until after we moved in together, so it's past serious at this point. But the partner thinks that their vote won't count and it won't make a difference.
Oh, Ryan, I could talk about this for an hour, but I will try to summarize it here. I was in a very similar situation. That's the reason that my boyfriend's voter registration status was inactive, was because he truthfully did not understand how electoral politics worked. And I can't blame him, right? We hear so much from candidates coming and showing up every 4 years and asking for our votes and telling us their platform, and then they go away until the next election. We rarely have elected officials who are communicating with us just simple civic education, what each office does, why your vote matters, and how your life is impacted by voting. So I think the answers to this question I've said throughout this talk tonight, so I'll just pick up the pieces and put them all together into one cohesive answer. The first thing, mention how many races are decided by one vote. How many races are ties? It sounds like something that doesn't happen that often. Just in the past, 3 or 4 years, I've seen it happen a handful of times just in Allegheny County alone. So I would definitely mention that. Second of all, anybody who thinks their vote doesn't count often hears that narrative around presidential elections. We have the Electoral College, where the electors are the ones officially counting the vote or deciding the vote for president. But it's our votes that decide who the electors go to. It is our vote that decides whoever gets the most votes in Pennsylvania gets all of the Electoral College votes for Pennsylvania. So if that's usually where I hear that coming from, is people are like, oh, the Electoral College, my vote doesn't count. So I would definitely explain that never are you only voting for president, and only the presidential race uses the Electoral College. Every single other race is one vote, one person. So that is why it's so important. Another answer that I would give is to just go outside and look around. If you are totally happy and thinks that the world and the community you live in is perfect and there's not a single thing you should change, then I don't know how I'm ever going to convince you to vote. Maybe go vote for the people who are already in office who you think are doing a perfect job. But I don't know anyone who could say that there is not a single thing that they would like to see changed in their community. And so just ask them, figure out the issue. It's your partner, so you know them better than I do. Do they care about the environment? Then talk to them about how their current elected officials are causing Allegheny County to have some of the worst air quality in the entire nation, day after day after day. If their issue is reproductive justice, then they need to be concerned about the fact that the Supreme Court is missing a person right now after Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed. And whoever is appointed to that seat will be determining the future of reproductive justice and reproductive health care in this country for potentially decades to come. If their issue is criminal justice reform, then that's why it's so much more important for them to vote in local races, like their district attorney's race, the sheriff, the county executive, county council members. It is so, so important. Then we talk about judges, right? When judges are elected, we are the ones who elect them. A lot of people think that judges are appointed because they're familiar with the Supreme Court and that's the only court they're really familiar with. Magisterial district judges represent tiny areas in each community, and they're the first line of defense in the criminal justice system, and we vote for them. Court of Common Pleas judges are, big court when you have to go downtown. We elect those judges, and once they get elected, they are pretty much judges for life. They serve 10-year terms and then just come up for retention after 10 years, where you vote a simple yes or no. So depending on what issue is most important to your partner, I know folks who their number one issue is public transportation. Ask them, can you walk to a bus stop from your house? Can you get to everywhere that you could possibly want to go just by walking down the street and getting to a bus stop? Because overwhelmingly, no one in Allegheny County can say yes to that question. And so there's so many races on all different levels. State level provides funding for public transportation. The federal level provides funding for public transportation. The Port Authority of Allegheny County is governed at the county level. And so there's just so many different reasons to implore folks to vote. And I think it's most important that you always start with, what do you care about most? Because if your number one thing is public transportation and I'm sitting here trying to convince you to vote because of a criminal justice reform platform, I'm never going to sway you. So you know your partner better than anyone. Ask them, what's most important to you? And then figure it out based off that, why it's so important for them to vote in each race, and reinforce to them that every vote indeed does count. And that I would bet that most people that we all know are on social media complaining about things that are going on in our society and then not going to vote to change it. So it's not the end all be all. It is not the only answer to fixing our community and fixing the world we live in. You can't just vote and then, do nothing else and hope it gets better. But it is a huge component, and other advocacy components, other fights that we have cannot be nearly successful if we're not also voting people into office, into seats at the table where the decisions are being made. So I hope that helps. And let me know if it works.
Yeah. Ryan said, "Thank you, Bethany."
Thanks,
Or
Ryan.
not? Well, you have her phone, you have her contact information. Carry on the conversation. As for me, that's all the questions I have. Before we, and this is why I love you so much. Thank you so much. And before I let Terrace come on and thank you as well. Is there anything else that you would like to say to your community in McKees Rocks and Stowe before we let you go?
No, just that I'm here for you. If you ever need anything, even if it's not something that my office deals with specifically, I will never end a conversation without putting you in contact with a person who can help you. So just know that, anything you need, no matter how big or how small, I'm always here for you. I love the McKees Rocks and Stowe community. I grew up right up the street and I spent a lot of time in the area in my lifetime. So it has a special place in my heart. And I just want you all to know that, it really does take a village, but when we all work together, we can make our community a better place for all of us.
Well, heads up, before I hand it over to Terrace, Ryan has already sent you an email.
Awesome.
So, Terrace, would you like to say anything to our guests before we let Bethany go?
Yeah, just brief. I learned so much tonight, Bethany. So thank you. Like, you really broke all of this down, and I'm glad we're recording this so that we can continue to put this out there, because I feel like you answered questions tonight that not only Allegheny County and Pennsylvania residents, but people all over the country are grappling with right now. And this is so helpful to break all this down. I feel a lot more confident and comfortable now with our voting process. And so please, Facebook land, share this watch parties. Share, let's keep sharing this information, because that's really where the power is for us to influence, as you said, what's important to us in our lives. That's why we're doing this, right? So we could have the type of community, the type of world that we want to live in. And, so thank you for doing this. I will be in touch to get you out here for a visit sometime.
I'll be there. Thank you
All right.
so much for having me. I'll come back anytime you invite me.
All right. Well, with that, we want to say thank you so much, Bethany Hallam. We cannot thank you enough. Again, like I said, we will be inviting you back to McKees Rocks and Stowe. And with that, we want to say thank you. Have a wonderful evening and have a safe and joyous night.
See you guys.
Thanks, Bethany.
Thanks.
So next we are going to have, hold on. Next we are going to have, coming up next, we are going to have, next week it is Anita Kulik. I hope that your state rep in McKees Stowe, I hope that, we can commit ourselves to bring a guest or bring a friend with us. I'm going to commit myself to bring 2 or 3 of my friends so we can all get educated together. And with that, I have nothing more to say. Terrace, do you have anything else to say?
No, other than Terry, again, fantastic job. I mean, the questions that you walked us through, this was so awesome tonight. I just, to your point, hope more people can see it. So we got Anita Kulik coming up. We have representatives from the Stowe Rock School District,
Senator Fontana,
and Magistrate Bonnie.
Yeah.
Coming up here in October. So it's going to be a great October. We have an opportunity to learn so much. And that's what I'm reminded of tonight is, you have a civics class in high school like we all did or used to, but it's so much more than that. There is so much for us to learn in terms of what our right, to use your words, rights, responsibilities are as citizens. It's immense, and what our elected officials are working on a daily basis. It's really incredible. These are things that you don't hear about on the news or on the internet, right? We get caught up in so much BS, kind of back and forth, that we're missing out on so many important issues. So thank you, Terry, for enlightening us and bringing this education to us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you, Ryan, Elizabeth, Sonia, everyone is watching. Thank you so much. Thank you for the questions. And again, I'm going to challenge everyone to bring a guest with you next week. Bring a guest to learn. If you have any questions, please do not, hesitate to ask. We all, like Bethany said before she left, it takes a village. It takes all of us to make sure that we are moving forward. One community cannot move forward without all the communities moving forward. So no community left behind. And with that, I'm going to say good night to everyone. Good night. Hope to see you. You're welcome, Ryan. Miss you. Hope to see you all next week. And I'll talk to you later. Bye, y'all.